Is that salmon, tilapia, catfish, codfish? Something smells fishy around here. Something smells fishy and it's not sitting well with me. I'm going to be honest. Some of you might not like this. I'm not buying this back injury thing. No, I'm not buying it. No, I think this got something to do with that dirty dog, Stephanie White. She pulled Caitlin Clark after one mistake, and then Caitlin Clark disappeared. I got footage to get into. No. We got to get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe.
Welcome back to WNBA Watch, the only place where we refuse to accept the official narratives handed down by front offices and broadcast networks when our own eyes tell us a completely different, far more explosive story. Today, we have a situation that is so bizarre, so highly suspicious, and so utterly unprecedented in professional basketball that it demands a frame-by-frame, second-by-second breakdown of what actually happened on that court. We are talking about the generational talent, the face of the league, Caitlin Clark, and a head coach in Stephanie White who seems to be playing a highly dangerous, intensely personal game of power, control, and absolute dominance. Now, the official story that was eventually, and very belatedly, fed to the public was that Caitlin Clark exited the game due to a sudden back injury. That is the sanitized, corporate, league-approved line. But I am telling you right now, straight up, something smells incredibly fishy here. And if you look closely at the footage, that official narrative crumbles into absolute dust. We are not buying this back injury excuse for a single second, and by the time we finish exposing this hidden footage, neither will you. This was not a medical emergency. This was a massive, boiling over of frustration, an ego-driven benching, and a subsequent cover-up that is spilling out in front of the entire world. Let us rewind the tape and look at the undeniable facts of how this supposed injury actually unfolded. In the second quarter, yes, there was a brief moment where Caitlin grabbed at her back with about 6 minutes left. But here is the crucial detail the network wants you to forget. She played another 4 high-intensity minutes after that exact moment. She looked completely fine, moving fluidly, executing plays, and she even scored. She finished out the half without any limping, grimacing, or signaling to the bench for a substitute. Then, we move into the fateful third quarter. Caitlin is out there running the floor, dropping a couple of brilliant assists, and then she pulls up and absolutely drains a massive, trademark, deep bomb of a three-pointer. It was a beautiful possession, the exact kind of momentum-shifting play that Phoenix is desperately looking for, and she executed it flawlessly. She was not playing like a woman crippled by back spasms. She was playing like Caitlin Clark. But the very next sequence down the floor is where the entire relationship between superstar player and head coach imploded in real time. Just moments after hitting that deep three, Caitlin turns the ball over. It happens to the best of them. It was a 5-second violation, a simple mistake. But watch what happens next. The opposing team gets the steal and pushes the ball rapidly up the floor. Caitlin, perhaps frustrated by her own turnover, does not sprint back on defense with maximum effort. She jogs, allowing a fast break that results in an easy layup, tying the game at 67. Now, look away from the players and focus your attention entirely on the sideline. Focus on head coach Stephanie White. She absolutely loses her mind. The sheer rage, the instant fury radiating from White is palpable. She literally jumps off the bench, screaming for a timeout, visibly furious, completely pissed off at Caitlin Clark's lack of transition defense. White had seen enough, and in that split second of anger, she made a deeply personal, entirely punitive coaching decision. She snatched Caitlin Clark, the most important player on the floor, right out of the game. It was not a medical substitution. It was a pure, unadulterated, disciplinary benching. She yanked her star player for one defensive lapse right after she had been cooking the opposing defense. And this is precisely where the official narrative goes from highly questionable to downright insulting to our intelligence. After being subbed out, you can clearly see Caitlin standing in the huddle. If a player, especially a franchise cornerstone, has just suffered a back injury severe enough to permanently pull them from a highly contested, tied basketball game, what is the standard protocol? Think about every NBA or WNBA game you have ever watched. Think about the NFL when a star quarterback takes a hit. There is an immediate, almost frantic swarm of medical professionals. The training staff rushes the player, they surround them, they ask questions, they evaluate the physical mechanics, and they meticulously escort that player to the locker room or the medical tent for immediate treatment. But what happens with Caitlin Clark? Absolutely nothing. Look at the huddle footage. She is standing there, completely ignored by the medical staff. No trainers are checking her back. Nobody is asking her if she needs ice, heat, or a physical evaluation. She is just standing there among the active players, looking utterly disgusted, fuming with the realization that she just got pulled by Stephanie White for a single mistake. And then, the most bizarre moment of all occurs. Caitlin Clark, apparently deciding that she has had enough of this disciplinary theater, simply turns around and walks to the locker room. Alone, by herself, completely unattended by any member of the Phoenix medical staff. I want you to really think about the absurdity of that image.
Subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, hype the video. That would be greatly appreciated as well. I'm not buying this back situation, y'all. I'm not buying it. No, I believe this was another situation in Fallout with Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White that it keeps overflowing and spilling out in front of everybody. And I'm going to get into the footage right here, right now. We're not playing that game because I'm not sold. I'm not buying it. Let's get into the footage. Let's get into the footage. Now, in this footage, what do we have?
The most valuable asset in the league supposedly suffers a game-ending back injury, and she just casually strolls down the tunnel solo. Nobody walks to the back alone if they are genuinely, medically incapacitated. No one. The absence of the trainers is the absolute smoking gun in this entire fiasco. It proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that this was not about a physical ailment. It was about pride, anger, and a fractured dynamic between coach and player. Caitlin was benched. She was livid about being publicly humiliated and yanked after making one mistake, and she essentially said, "You know what? I'm done. If you're going to treat me like this, I'm out of here." And who could possibly blame her? She was dominating the first half, making spectacular plays, and the moment she makes one error, White uses it as an excuse to exert dominance. The broadcast team, normally so quick to report on the status of star players, was stunningly silent. For over 30 excruciating minutes, the telecast offered zero updates, no sideline reports, no medical confirmations. Why the silence? Because the team's PR department was scrambling in absolute chaos behind the scenes, desperately trying to construct a plausible, damage-controlling narrative to explain why their superstar was sitting in the locker room while the game was on the line. They couldn't say Stephanie White got mad and benched her, and Caitlin walked out in frustration, because that would expose a deeply toxic locker room culture and a complete breakdown of trust. So what did they do? They dusted off the old back injury excuse from the second quarter, a minor tweak she had already played through flawlessly, and weaponized it as a convenient, face-saving cover story for both the coach and the player. It is a fabricated smokescreen designed to hide the ugly truth of an ego clash. I am absolutely not buying this corporate spin, and anyone with a pair of eyes and an understanding of how professional sports medical protocols work should not buy it either. Stephanie White did Caitlin Clark dirty. She pulled a power trip, benched her star, and created a completely unnecessary drama that forced the franchise into a pathetic cover-up. If White hadn't let her ego dictate that substitution, Caitlin Clark would have absolutely finished that game, back tweak and all. We all saw her hit that three, we all saw her drop those dimes, and we all saw the petty, vindictive timeout that ended her night. Do not let the network PR machine gaslight you into believing a narrative that the raw, uncut footage directly contradicts. The truth is messy, the truth is uncomfortable, and the truth is that the relationship between this generational player and her head coach is hanging by a very dangerous, incredibly fragile thread. To truly understand the gravity of this situation, we must delve into the psychological warfare that is currently tearing this team apart from the inside out. Head coach Stephanie White is known for her demanding style, but there is a profound, undeniable difference between holding players accountable and publicly humiliating your franchise cornerstone over a singular, routine basketball error. When Caitlin Clark committed that turnover, it was a momentary lapse in concentration, The kind of mistake that happens dozens of times in every single professional basketball game across the globe. But for White, it was seemingly the excuse she had been desperately waiting for. The footage of White erupting on the sideline is not just a coach being passionate. It is a coach losing emotional control. She explodes off the bench, her body language screaming with a disproportionate level of rage, immediately demanding a timeout. This was not a strategic pause to draw up a defensive scheme. This was a punitive strike. This was Stephanie White looking at the scoreboard, looking at Caitlin Clark, and making a deeply conscious, incredibly reckless decision to prioritize her own authority over the team's momentum and success. When you yank a player of Caitlin Clark's magnitude out of a fiercely contested game simply because she didn't sprint back on a single transition play, you are sending a toxic, incredibly damaging message to the entire roster. You are saying that no amount of offensive brilliance can protect you from the coach's impulsive wrath. And let's not forget the sheer hypocrisy of the medical cover-up that followed. We are expected to believe, as a rational audience of basketball fans, that a player experiencing game-ending back spasms was simply allowed to stand idly in a high-stress huddle, completely untouched by medical professionals? Have you ever seen a trainer ignore a multi-million-dollar asset who is actively suffering from a spinal or muscular injury? The protocol is universally strict. You isolate the player, you conduct immediate physical assessments, you apply immediate therapeutic measures, and you secure their physical transition to a medical facility. But Caitlin was left completely to her own devices. She stood there, processing the immense disrespect of the benching, her frustration visibly mounting with every passing second. When she finally decided to walk down that tunnel, it was not the slow, agonizing walk of an injured athlete. It was the purposeful, disgusted stride.
You're going to see, right here, you're going to see Caitlin Clark. She makes a three. Mind you, that video of Caitlin Clark grabbing her back, that was in the second quarter with like 6 minutes left. She played 4 minutes after that, seemed fine. She scored after that. She played fine in the second quarter after that. In the third quarter, she had a couple assists. She hit a bomb of a three you're about to see. Watch this sequence when Stephanie White snaps on Caitlin Clark and yanks her out the game, and then we never see her. Watch this. I don't think she was hurt like that. I think her ass got benched and pulled by Stephanie White because it's nonsense going on. Pay attention.
Fever.
Of a superstar who realized she was being played. She walked past the bench, past the assistants, past the non-existent medical staff, and disappeared into the locker room, leaving a massive, gaping hole in the team's offense and a cloud of absolute suspicion over the entire arena. The broadcast booth's subsequent silence is the final, damning piece of evidence in this elaborate puzzle. In an era where sideline reporters provide instant, real-time updates on everything from a taped ankle to a jammed finger, the absolute void of information regarding the league's biggest draw was deafening. 30 minutes of dead air. 30 minutes of commentators awkwardly dancing around the glaring absence of Caitlin Clark. This wasn't a failure of journalism. This was a gag order. The front office was trapped. If they admitted that White benched Clark and Clark walked out, they would be confirming a catastrophic internal mutiny. So they panicked. They searched for an excuse, any excuse, to explain the inexplicable. They retroactively weaponized a minor grimace from the second quarter, completely ignoring the fact that Clark had played flawlessly for crucial minutes after that exact moment. They spun a web of medical jargon to distract from the bitter, undeniable reality of a coach-player relationship that is rapidly deteriorating into outright hostility. This is the kind of front office manipulation that ruins franchises. It breeds distrust among the players, it alienates the fan base, and it creates a highly pressurized, toxic environment where nobody feels secure. Caitlin Clark is not just a player. She is an entire economic ecosystem, a generational phenomenon who brings unparalleled attention and revenue to the league. Treating her like a disposable rookie who needs to be taught a harsh lesson in front of thousands of fans and millions of viewers is not just bad coaching. It is spectacular, franchise-endangering incompetence. And the fact that they tried to cover it up with a phantom injury just adds profound insult to injury. We see right through the smokescreen. We see the anger in Stephanie White's eyes. We see the disgust in Caitlin Clark's solitary walk to the locker room. And we see the desperate, scrambling lies of a PR department caught completely off guard. The truth is right there in the unedited, raw footage, and it paints a picture of a team on the absolute brink of a massive internal explosion. This isn't just about one game, one turnover, or one benching. This is about respect, trust, and the fundamental mishandling of the most important asset in modern women's basketball. And as long as the establishment tries to feed us these fabricated narratives, we will be right here, breaking down the tape, exposing the contradictions, and bringing you the unfiltered, unvarnished truth. We must also ask ourselves about the long-term implications of this disastrous sequence of events. When a coach like Stephanie White crosses this line, when she chooses to publicly humiliate her star rather than manage the situation behind closed doors, it fractures the foundational trust that is absolutely necessary for any championship-contending team. How can Caitlin Clark ever fully trust this coaching staff again? How can she go out on the floor, night after night, knowing that a single mistake, a single missed rotation, or a simple turnover will result in an immediate, draconian benching followed by a coordinated media lie about her physical health? It creates an environment of fear and hesitation, the exact opposite of the creative, free-flowing, hyper-confident style of play that made Caitlin Clark a household name in the first place. You cannot harness generational greatness by putting it on a fiercely tight leash and punishing it with public embarrassment. This archaic, authoritarian coaching style is completely incompatible with the modern superstar dynamic. And if the organization does not step in and immediately rectify this massive breach of trust, they risk completely alienating the very player who is supposed to define their franchise for the next decade. The fans are not stupid. We see the inconsistencies. We see the lack of trainers. We see the furious timeout. We see the solitary walk. The narrative is collapsing under the weight of its own absurd contradictions. It is time for complete transparency, but since the league refuses to provide it, we will continue to dissect every frame, every reaction, and every sideline interaction. The real story is hiding in plain sight, and it reveals a shocking level of dysfunction that threatens to derail an entire season. So, as we wrap up this unprecedented investigation, I urge you to look beyond the box score and the official press releases. Trust your own eyes, trust the raw footage, and recognize the massive cover-up happening right in front of us. This has been another deep dive from WNBA Verdict, your ultimate source for the raw, unedited truth. We will not stop digging until every layer of this scandal is fully exposed. Make sure you are subscribed, drop your absolute rawest opinions in the comments, and share this breakdown everywhere, because the world needs to know exactly what is happening behind the curtain.